Usisileleli Afrika, maluphakanyisa ubonolayo, izwa imithandazo yethu. Nkosi, sikelela thina lusapho lwayo, bulela buluka sitshaba sa Yesu. Usibuluke, sitshaba sa Yesu, sitshaba sa South Africa, South Africa.
Sing together to uphold the The Government Communication and Information System was formally established in terms of Section 239 of the Constitution as a strategic unit in the Presidency. The GCIS vision is to be the pulse of communication excellence in government by delivering best practice in communication service and by engaging with citizens and other stakeholders. GCIS is mandated to coordinate, guide, and advise on government communication, which includes media liaison development, communication, and marketing. The coordination of communication ensures that government messaging is clear and coherent, and that public information allows citizens to access services and resources that can help them improve their quality of life and build stronger and empowered communities. The Director General and Accounting Officer of the GCIS is also the Cabinet spokesperson. GCIS's three key core programs are corporate services, content processing and dissemination, intergovernmental coordination and stakeholder management. Corporate services provide strategic leadership management and support service to the department. Content processing and dissemination is a hub of campaign management, media buying, communications research, print and online publishing, and social engagement. The product and platforms produce Vuk'uzenzele newspaper, the Public Sector Manager magazine, the South Africa Yearbook, and the Official Guide to South Africa. The sub-program provides language service for products that require writing, translation, editing, and proofreading. It manages the South African Government web portal and the GCIS website, as well as social engagement. Products and Platforms is also the home of the government news agency sanews.gov.za, which keeps citizens in South Africa and stakeholders on the continent and around the world updated on developments in government and the public sector more broadly. Policy and Research conducts research through independent service providers to assess how government should address the public's information needs. It also monitors the media coverage of issues affecting government in the country. The GCIS's Communication Service Agency provides media bulk buying services and media production services to government. It also develops distribution strategies for all government communication and oversees distribution services that are contracted to service providers in the private sector. The sub-program manages national government's corporate identity and supports GCIS and other government departments with marketing and distribution services. The agency produces content for out-of-home placement, print and broadcast advertising, and designs commemorative and occasional publications. Photographic and audio-visual crews are deployed around the country and around the world to document the activities of the President, Deputy President, and other government leaders. GCIS's entity oversight provides support and exercises oversight over public entities and report to GCIS to ensure that government is sound and ethical and that the entity programs are impactful. The two public entities resorting under the GCIS are Brand South Africa, or in short, Brand SA, and the Media Development and Diversity Agency, or the MDDA. Media Policy conducts research and develops policy proposals around the development of the media sector in South Africa. The third and final GCIS program is Intergovernmental Coordination and Stakeholder Management. Its purpose is to provide leadership and strategic advice to provincial and local government communication systems. Its aim is to strengthen the system of government communication and to implement face-to-face direct communication through sound stakeholder relations and partnerships. It also has to ensure that the public remains informed about government policies and programs to improve their lives. Media engagement leads and drives interaction and communication between government and the media. The unit ensures effective liaison between ministers, senior public servants, and the media. Provincial and local liaison implements outreach programs to widen access to government programs and policies by the public. The sub-program is responsible for promoting Tusong service centers as well as ensuring that government departments send printed products and materials to these centers. It also supports the district campaign program of government in line with the district development model. The Government Communication and Information System is committed to maintaining a constant flow of communication between government and its citizens, a hallmark of true democracy.
Molweni, Dumelang, Dimacheloni, Absheni, Sanbonani, Jambo, Huemora. A very good morning and welcome to this webinar on women's socio-economic development, empowerment and advancement in Africa, brought to you by GCIS, BintiAfrika Konnect, Brand South Africa and the Mail and Guardian. My name is Nzinga Kunda. I'm a business news anchor, and it's my great pleasure to be a program director today as we speak about some of the challenges facing women in Africa, as well as the solutions for women on the continent. Today, we have virtually gathered women who are working to ensure the advancement of women's rights in Africa are prioritized. If you'd like to add your voice to the conversation that we're having today, you can use the following hashtags on social media. The first one is Women's Empowerment Agenda, Africa Webinars, or Women's Month 2022. Our first speaker of the day is Ms. Tembi Rulani Siweya, a youth activist and philanthropist who's passionate about promoting a culture of reading and writing. In 2014, she started Africa Unmasked, a movement used to deliberate on current issues, especially when it comes to gender, health, education, governance, economics, and identity. Africa Unmasked encourages dialogue among Africans with the aim of facilitating interdependence among African states. Ms. Siweya was also the Deputy Minister in the Presidency and our keynote speaker. A very good morning to you, and over to you.
Oh, My apology, I was not aware that I have muted. I I apologize. Please allow me to start from the beginning. I'm really sorry about that. When I started by greeting the program director, and I greeted my fellow panelists, and I also greeted Africans and South Africans on the platform on various platforms, and also extended a word of gratitude for GCIS and MDD and Brand South Africa for making this a reality. Furthermore, I wanted to thank Mail and Guardian as one of our partners for this event. We meet today as women from all over the continent with a specific mission in mind. This webinar on socio-economic empowerment and advancement is an opportunity for all of us to contribute to the advancement of women in the continent. It is no exaggeration to say that our task today is indeed daunting, for we all know the challenges faced by women on a daily basis. It is also a sobering reality that many women remain marginalized and have no voice. Therefore, our task becomes even more urgent. As women leaders, influencers, and thought leaders, we have a duty to pave the way for others to follow. Our continent is blessed with many virtues, and top amongst these is our youthful population. It is a well-accepted fact that large youth populations are emerging and are representing various economies, which are a significant economic resource, since a youthful working population can drive economic growth and offset social cost of this aging population. Our continent has many benefits and indeed limitless potential. However, we face a reality where many remain marginalized and in poverty and unemployment. Friends, it is most fitting that we meet today during the Women's Month in South Africa. In 1994, our new elected democratic government declared August 9 to be our National Women's Day to commemorate the heroism of the 20,000 women who marched to the Union buildings on August 9, 1956. The women of 1956 and many others throughout our history have paved the way for this generation to grasp with destiny and to help build a better tomorrow for all. The question that I am sure we will grapple with today is how we empower women to rise, and in doing so, ensure greater economic advancement. I am pleased to note that many inspirational women are on the panel today, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts and shared wisdom. As women, we need to use our collective voices and our influence to transform society. I know all of us have faced many challenges, and despite this, our successes, we are all burdened in additional ways of merely empowering each other as women. Our struggles have, however, made us resilient, and in this same resilience, we can be found in the millions of women all over the world who are celebrating our achievement. Let us therefore use today to divulge deeper into the challenges that women face and to explore solutions. Our task today is to use our collective wisdom to find innovative ways to empower women, whilst we also strengthen gender equality and inclusive growth and access across all sectors. Program Director, the empowerment of women is very imperative, but it is also the single most prosperous thing that can be done to build a better nation. Women are known to invest in their children's health, education, which holds an enormous benefit for fighting against the triple challenges of unemployment, inequality, and poverty. In growing our economies on the continent, the empowerment of women can boost productivity while increasing economic diversification and income inequality, in addition to other positive developmental outcomes. In doing so, women will be able to take their rightful place in all sectors of society and be empowered to not stay in abusive relationships for financial reasons. Women who are financially dependent on their husbands, fathers, partners, and family members have increased vulnerability to domestic violence, rape, incest, abuse, and murders. By empowering women, we give them financial freedom to liberate themselves from abusive relationships. Empowering women is also one of the most important levers of fighting the prevalence of gender-based violence and femicide. Fellow South Africans, while progress has undoubtedly been made, we still have much to do to ensure women empowerment and equal opportunities in the workspace exist. The continent, like the rest of the world, is only now emerging from the long shadow caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, which devastated lives and battered our collective economies. In many cases, the progress made in empowering women has been eroded or stagnant. We have fallen behind and need to pick up the pace to get back on track. Let us therefore use today's session to ensure that we contribute in meaningful ways to ensure the complete and equal integration of women into all aspects of our society. I think we can all agree that women's empowerment has to start with the economy. Investment of women are a surefire way of creating jobs, grow our economies, and ensure that we uplift women and children. In South Africa, we have focused on women empowerment since 1994. This we have done through a mixture of legislative and economic means. Gender equality and women's empowerment remain central to our developmental state and our drive to ensure sustainable development. All people in South Africa enjoy the same rights, which are protected by our constitution and a number of laws which have been enacted to ensure the empowerment and protection of women. These laws have helped to ensure greater gender equality and have empowered many women to take their rightful place in society. However, many women are still excluded and face grim reality of gender inequality. Changing this reality is undoubtedly the biggest cause of our time. The women of 1956 stood up and acted, no matter the cost, and we need to do the same. As women, and our freedom gives rise to greater opportunities for women. We must continue to work to remove the many obstacles that prevent women from rising to their full economic potential. Only by acting can we ensure that women are empowered to take their rightful place in all spheres of society. The little girl who one day dreams of being a pilot must be encouraged. That little girl must be supported and empowered to achieve that dream. We need to create a reality where the only limit to potential of women is death. Ladies and gentlemen, we look forward to the next few hours in engaging and ensuring that we empower each other as women. We also deliberate on how we go further to encourage the rural women we find in our continent so that they can also enjoy the benefits of women empowerment. Thank you very much.
And also the challenges and vulnerabilities that can occur when women are not empowered. And most importantly, the importance of investing in women and ensuring our participation in the economy. Let's continue the discussion. Up next, I'd like to call to the virtual stage Ms. Valerie Ndinenengo Sia Msoka, a seasoned journalist from Tanzania. She's one of the founding members of the Tanzania Media Women Association and chairperson of the Tanzania Ending Child Marriage Network. It's over to you.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to say my word of thanks to Madam Thembi Siweya on her opening note and the fact that women are part of any country's development. And as she said, empowerment of women will ensure their full participation. Well said, Ms. Thembi. Thank you very much to the organizers for inviting BintiAfrika Konnect to participate in this event. It's an honor to be part of it. And much thanks to all who have tuned in to join us today. Thank you for your time. And thank you for your valuable and much needed input that I'm sure you will be inputting. And to all women out there, happy Women's Month. Congratulations to all of you for your yesterdays, for your todays, and with God's will for your tomorrows. I'm part of, as presented, one of the founder members of the BintiAfrika Connect. This is a Pan-African monthly newsletter. It is a newsletter that joins others that are out there in amplifying what women and girls in our continent are doing. As we know, as we beat the drums together, then the sound gets further and further, and it's listened to. And as we dance, action is also taken. BintiAfrika Connect has different sections. It looks at what Africans are doing, women are doing in East, West, in the continent in general. Then it looks at Africa in general. Then we highlight a Binti of the month. Binti means daughter. So whatever age you are, you're a Binti. And then we look at what African women are doing in the fields of arts and culture. And then we also notify what is going to happen or what is happening. Check this out in BintiAfrikaConnect.org and please subscribe. Now, as a media person, I'm here to talk about using the media effectively to advance our agenda, and in this case, socio and economic empowerment and advancement. And I begin this by quoting Malcolm X. He said, "The media is the most powerful entity on earth. They have the power to make the innocent guilty and to make the guilty innocent." That's how powerful it is. It means it can make the public accept red as white and white as red. In essence, the media has the power to influence minds, ideas, behaviors, and attitudes of the masses to make informed choices. So this is what the media is all about, and this is what the media, I'm here to talk how we can use this. And I'm going to use examples through the work that I have done to convince those who are not convinced, but for those who are in listening to also contribute ideas so that we can use the media effectively to advance women in socio-economic fields and empower them so that they're emboldened to use the media, and also convince the media to be an ally rather than a foe. Now, during the COVID, I was working in Somalia. All the media organizations came together to create messaging so that people can understand what is happening. And the main issue was taking away misinformation that was surrounding COVID. But let us also know that when it comes to disasters, when it comes to issues like conflict, disasters, famine, drought, in all scenarios, women and girls are most impacted. So when we were doing this messaging, how do we get across to these women? What are the issues that women needed? So when we looked at this, that is how we sort of said, okay, women will be going to the market. So how do we get the messages while maybe they are there or going there, so that they know what actions to take? And don't forget also, we are looking at a continent where women are already marginalized, but also some of them are not as educated as others. So the media can be used to bridge this divide between the urban and the rural, so that we put the messaging to change the attitude between the men and women so that they work together in dealing with this disease. But now There is drought in Somalia again. So, and women, research is already showing that women and girls are already more impacted. So if we use the media in messaging, but making sure that how do we look at this group of women so that we can get messages across them, getting their voices to say. We also had an election in Somalia and we were really pushing towards 30% quota. We didn't get that, but we got for the first time, we got a woman as a deputy speaker. So those are the scenarios in Somalia. While I was in South Sudan, there was a vaccination campaign, and what we did was just say that every time a person was vaccinated, we asked, "Where did you get the message from?" And we knew that they always got the message from the radio. Why? Because we had targeted our messaging. At the time is where we thought that women would be listening. Then when we come to Tanzania, we have the Tanzania Media Women Association. This is a household name in Tanzania, formed since the 1970s there. So, but it is a household name. And working with the women organizations in Tanzania, we amplified the issues of rape to the extent that rape was considered a crime. We advocated through the media against FGM to the extent that FGM became a crime. But we also, through the media organizations, through working with the media, we brought gender equality to become a national issue. And we can say proudly that Tanzania, we have a woman president, and she is accepted and seen as someone who can work as well as any man. South Africa is a good example where you have women. Rwanda is a good example where you have women, but it is the media that has worked through that. And when we come now to talking about social and economic advancement to women, I would say that among the things that we need to look at is how do we work with the media? How do we use the media for our own benefit? So I would say, let us see how we can strategize. I saw the first video where the government was communicating. Let all agencies, let all organizations see how they have communication there. But I know, for example, I'll use an example recently in Somalia where the journalists will tell me, "Oh, but when we want to interview the women, it's hard to get them." And I say to them, I have been a journalist and I've sat outside a minister's office, sometimes for hours, waiting for an interview. Or I will come back again and again. Why can't you do the same for this woman? And what time are you going to do that interview? So let us encourage the media to understand and to accept that they have to have a gender balance in the output. But also on some of that as well, get the editors together. Let us get the editors together and talk to them about our agenda, because sometimes maybe they don't understand. So let us put this across. As I said, let us use them as our ally. I do know in Tanzania, for example, when we were pushing for the issue of gender-based violence to be understood, accepted, and spoken about, we actually called the editors and told them, what is this we are talking about gender-based violence? What is this we are talking about gender equality? And they have been the champions now. For example, gender-based violence is front page news now in Tanzania. It's no longer there. Men are reporting about it. So we need to get the media, the editors, all involved. But apart from that, we need to have women in senior leadership in the media as well. And then to embolden all our women. I know journalists sometimes are seen as enemies, sometimes are seen as bad people, but hey, have we come across to them? Have we tried to understand them? But these women, how do we embolden them? In the rural areas, I know I've gone to places where I'm trying to give a woman a mic, and she says, no, it's fine. But she'll say it aside. So how do we embolden them to be able to see the microphone as a tool to forward whatever agenda we have, but also to be able to speak out? So those are the things. But then everywhere else, in the government, in the ministries, in organizations, let us also see how we can engage the media effectively so that our cause is advanced. I mean, women are out there. We need to showcase what we are doing so that we embolden others, as we see by examples. So if I see, for example, I see Madam there who was speaking, Madam Thembi Siwea speaking, there is a girl out there who will say, I also want to be like her, just as well as our presenter. There's a girl out there saying, I would like to be the presenter there. So using the media effectively is a tool that I see in advancing women in all spheres. So I say that. And I would like, I'm sure those listening there, participating, their fellow media people, and there are people who are in organizations that have used the media effectively. I would like you to also contribute so that we make this, when we come out of this webinar today, we come up with strong recommendations that are also participatory, that can be used effectively to push for our agenda, gender equality, but making sure that women participate in all spheres. Women are seen in all what is sectors, not only those who are higher up, but even the women in the rural areas. Let us hear what they are doing, because they're doing great things where they are. So let the media be the bridge, but let us, who can use the media, also send out the media wherever we can, so that the voices of women, the actions of women, their participation and contribution is seen in our media platforms, all of them. Now, thank you. This is all I have, because otherwise I'll take out all your time, because that's how much I believe the media can bring. Now, among the organizations that I work with, as well as BintiAfrika, is the Tanzania Ending Child Marriage Network in Tanzania. It is an organization or a network that brings together 40 organizations fighting for the rights of the child, especially the girl child. Now, among the organizations is one that is called Msichana Initiative. And they have a beautiful project called One Girl, One Bike, which I see as a platform towards having other Thembi Siweas, other Samia Suluhu Hassans, other Ngozi Okedio Yuela, or other Vera Songwes, or other powerful women on this platform. So I would like you to see this simple initiative that makes a platform for girls to be where some of us are. So please, I thank you for listening, but I also thank you in advance for watching in the next 6 minutes for this video, One Girl, One Bike. Thank you for listening, and over to you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Valerie Ndenengo Siamsoka, for your presentation and for amplifying the voices of women, not only this webinar, but through the work that you do, and also for highlighting during your presentation the power of the media in bridging, among other things, the urban and rural divide and collaborating in times of crisis. Let's then take a look at that video that tells us more about the work that BintiAfrika does.
The Government Communication and Information System was
mradi huu umeweza kunisaidia kuepuka vitendo vya ushawishi kwa sehemu kubwa sana. Kipindi nilikuwa bado sijapata baiskeli, njiani bahati mbaya katokea tu nikakutana na kijana wa bodaboda. Akaniambia hivi, nakugeia lift, uweze ukakataa kwa sababu unataka upate lift ili uweze kuwahi shuleni. Manake ukikataa shuleni huku ukichelewa itakuwa ni mambo mengine. Kwa hiyo lazima uweze kuepuka ushawishi, lazima utakubali kupata na lift hiyo. Dereva bodaboda anasema simama nikupakia, wakati mwingine hatuna nauli.
Furaha ya kupata basikeli ilikuwa inamwahisha shuleni na inamwahisha nyumbani. Hilo ndio lilonipa furaha yangu mimi mwenyewe.
Pia kwa kupata basikeli hizi zimetusaidia kupanda kwa ufaulu wetu.
Na hii imetokana kwamba licha kwamba walikuwa wanatoka mbali, mradi huu wa basikeli wasaidia wakawa naweza kuwahi asubuhi, kwa sababu kwanza kuna vipindi vya asubuhi kuanzia saa 12:30 wanaingia darasani mpaka saa 1:30 kuna walimu walikuwa wanafundisha. Kutokana na basikeli hizi waliweza kufika mapema na kuingia darasani.
Vile vile zimepunguza utoro, manake kwa jinsi umbali uliokuwepo, mwanafunzi alikuwa akienda arudi nyumbani, sababu zilikuwa nyingi, mara naumwa, kwa hiyo utoro ulikuwa mwingi, lakini sasa hivi imepunguza.
Kutokana na hiyo iliwapelekea kwamba wote wakapasi kwenda kidato cha 3, na kati ya hao kuna ambao walikuwa na uwezo kawaida, lakini waliweza hata kupata division 3, yani daraja la 3. Kwa mfano tu ni Agripina Ulanga, yule pale alipata division 3, ambazo isingekuwa mradi huu na mimi nasingeweza kupata division 3, maana toka mbali kwa singeweza kuvilia vipindi vyote.
Na shirika nalishukuru sana kwa sababu limetazama vizuri sana kwamba mtoto wa kike na mwenyewe ainuke afanane na mtoto wa kiume.
Mradi wa basikeli moja msichana mmoja ni mradi ambao shirika letu la Msichana Initiative limekuwa linauendesha tangu tulipoanza mwaka 2016. Mradi huu wa basikeli moja msichana mmoja umekuwa ni nyenzo muhimu sana kuhakikisha kwamba tunachangia katika jitihada za kutokomeza masuala ya ukatili. Wasichana wengi kujikuta wanaingia kwenye matatizo kama ya utoro, mimba za utotoni, hasa ambapo wanakuwa wanatafuta usafiri wa kuwafikisha shuleni au wa kuwarudisha nyumbani. Tunafahamu vile vile kutokana na utafiti wa masuala ya ukatili kwa watoto uliofanyika mwaka 2011 na shirika la UNICEF, unaonyesha kuwa takriban msichana mmoja kati ya wasichana 3 ameshapitia vitendo vya ukatili wa kingono kabla ya kutimiza miaka 18. Na 72% ya wasichana wameshapitia ukatili wa kimwili. Kwa hiyo mradi huu hasa umelenga kuhakikisha kwamba tunaweza kuwasaidia wasichana na kifaa ambacho kitaweza kuwasaidia kufika haraka shuleni, na tunawahamasisha wasichana kuendelea kubaki shule na kupinga ukatili ambao unawafanya mara zote waingie katika changamoto ambazo nimezitaja kama za ndoa za utotoni, mimba za utotoni na vitendo vya ubakaji. Tunajivunia sana mradi huu wa basikeli moja msichana mmoja kwa sababu ni mradi ambao kwa 100% unafadhiliwa na Watanzania wenyewe. Watanzania kupitia michango yao midogo kuanzia shilingi 1000 wamekuwa wanachangia kupitia shirika letu, na sisi kuhakikisha fedha hizi zinafikia wasichana kwa kuwapatia vifaa vya basikeli. Kwa hiyo ningependa pia kukuhamasisha, kama unatamani pia kushiriki katika kampeni hii ya basikeli moja msichana mmoja, ni rahisi sana. Sisi tunasema kwa kila msichana mmoja ni 1,500 tu, lakini hiyo hutaki kuchangia peke yako. Kama unaweza kuchangia basikeli moja, tunashukuru. Kama unaweza kuchangia basikeli zaidi ya moja, tutashukuru pia. Lakini hata kama una 1000, usisite, tuchangie kupitia namba yetu utakayoona hapo chini kwenye screen, ili tuweze kuwasaidia wasichana wengi wa Tanzania na kutoka mikoa mbalimbali waendelee kupata fursa ya kupata elimu. Tunasema one girl, one bike.
Our next speaker is Ms. Mabatlaro Nono Dihemo. She's the Senior Gender Advisor at the United Nations Assistance Mission for Afghanistan, women's rights and minority rights activist, and an advocate for gender equality. She's also the BintiAfrika co-founder and Southern Africa editor. A very good morning and over to you.
Madam Program Director, thank you very much for the kind introduction. Excellencies, panel members, and the audience and Bintis around the globe and continent joining us today, all protocols observed. Thank you for having BintiAfrika in this dialogue, and happy Women's Month to all the women who have joined us in this webinar today. Before I start with my presentation, allow me to also wish my mother, my rock, a happy birthday. She's turning 76 today. And happy birthday to my friend Ricky and all those who are celebrating their special day of birthday today. Thank you. As introduced, Nono Mabatlaro Dihemo. I work for the UN and currently based in Kabul, working as the Senior Gender Advisor for the UN Assistance Mission for Afghanistan, and the co-founder of BintiAfrika and Southern Editor. Today, my presentation will focus on the implications of COVID-19 from a women, peace and security perspective, WPS, while also illustrating the urgent need to ensure the continued implementation of national policies and action plans on UN Security Council Resolution 1325, as well as how its implementation contributes to long-term responses to COVID-19 that promote gender equality. As highlighted, this pandemic really has severely impacted the fragile accomplishments on the Sustainable Development Goals in a very short period. With regard to the Beijing Platform for Action and other international treaties, which have become a sound voice for those with no or a lower level of access to equal opportunities, this pandemic has taught us that promoting agendas such as those calling for increased equity or empowerment requires a more sustainable approach in order to devote further attention to changing attitudes and social norms. Consequently, women in most countries have reported an increase in different types of violence, a higher burden of care, loss of income, and employment, losing formal and informal education opportunities, and lower levels of access to healthcare services such as COVID-19 prevention. In Afghanistan, for example, where I currently work, there was a myriad of challenges during the first months of COVID-19 outbreak. For example, on people's access to and sources of information on the pandemic, challenges in accessing the healthcare services, loss of employment, reduction in household income, and burden of unpaid domestic care, the effects of school closures, access to water, and triggers of migration and displacement. COVID is not just a health crisis. It continues to shock our economies, societies. It also threatens our future, and it exposed how unequal we really are. For the UN family in Afghanistan, it also confirmed one of our strong beliefs that we are relevant as long as we serve the communities we are meant to serve, as long as we are there where Afghan women need us to be. As I highlighted, the impact from homes to internally displaced camps, Afghan women were especially hurt by the resulting economic and social fallout. This devastation reinforced that the Women, Peace and Security agenda and its implementation must remain a priority amidst immediate pandemic security, health, and humanitarian responses. The imperatives of the Women, Peace and Security agenda requires continued investment in civic space and protection mechanisms for women's civil society and peace builders. In addition, the pandemic responses must be informed by prevention, protection, and equal and meaningful participation of women. The slides that you are seeing now are of Binti, our publication. The global impact was also equally devastating. And women leaders, globally, some were lauded as doing a great job on pandemic responses compared to men. Research has shown that governments with women in elected and administrative leadership positions are likely better prepared to meet women's needs and protect women's rights during pandemics and the crisis. This pandemic showed us that women's leadership supports healthier and more equal societies that place social and environmental well-being at the core of national policy making. So in my view, for COVID-19 approaches to be responsive and to address the gendered impact, women must be at the center of COVID-19 recovery efforts. This starts with women's equal representation and participation in decision-making processes, ensuring women's meaningful participation and leadership in the COVID-19 design and post-COVID is essential to meet the needs of all the women and girls and the marginalized groups. So in the context that I'm working at, this pandemic arrived during critical political junctures, including the prospect of an intra-Afghan dialogue after the signing of the peace process between the Taliban and the United States. And then the Taliban came to power just during the pandemic crisis, and they continued with the exclusionary policies of women in decision-making processes and in governance. And as the UN family, we continue our advocacy efforts with the de facto authorities to enhance their political commitment to gender equality, which is very tall, it's a tall order, it's a tough agenda, but we continue to advocate that they adopt gender-responsive approaches to policy making and ensure that women and girls have equal access to opportunities in emerging sectors, as well as adequately benefit from the pandemic recovery strategies. We also continue our advocacy for equitable access to technology and innovation as an essential step to enhance women and girls' meaningful participation in the labor market and allow them to have, as workers and entrepreneurs, to thrive as workers and entrepreneurs, particularly in emerging sectors and green jobs. Can you please move to slide 6, slide 7, slide 8, thank you. So here in these slides, we see the global impacts of COVID-19 on women. This is the global figures. It shows how women lost jobs, the percentages, and how the percentages of women and men, and how governments responded to women's needs, which were really at the center of the planning and design of integrated approaches. Please move to the next slide. As I mentioned earlier, that the women were more impacted by GBV due to the pandemic. Here, I'm showing, these slides show the increase on GBV and how countries or governments responded. But many gaps, of course, remain in ensuring that women's needs are addressed during the crisis. So let's move to the next slide, please. Women's economic security. Many women lost their jobs during the crisis, and it is still a challenge now because some of them cannot, especially those in lower incomes, those who are in businesses, small enterprise, they are not able to go back to, they are not able to meet their family's needs. Let's move to the next slide, please. The COVID also impacted women caregivers. It has had a detrimental impact on women's economic security. It also exacerbated the existing inequalities in unpaid care work. For countless women in economics of every size, along with losing income, unpaid care and domestic work burden has exploded. While everyone is facing unprecedented challenges, women are bearing the brunt of all the economic fallout and the economic and social fallout due to the pandemic. Next slide, please. Generally, the exclusion of women from participating in the design, development, and implementation of crisis responses, or, for example, in peace and security processes, as is the case in Afghanistan, Iraq, Yemen, and other countries in conflict. This is rooted in pre-existing gender inequalities and patterns of exclusion. I also highlighted the importance of women's participation and representation and security, and the women peace and security agenda really must remain a priority amidst immediate pandemics, security, health, and humanitarian responses. The question now is, how do we ensure that women have a seat at the table? What can we do to ensure that our responses to crisis are women-focused, centered, and improve access across the board? I have highlighted some of the examples of the contexts where I'm operating. So, women's participation in public life, women's representation in designing responses for COVID really improved it improved in different countries. This improved the responses for women, the participation in general. Some of them contributed to policy innovations, and learning happened amid glaring gaps. Integrated approaches and feminist mobilization was quite important. The imperatives of the WPS agenda requires continued investment in civic society and protection mechanisms for women's civil society groups and peace builders. The answer to the questions that I posed earlier lies in establishing measures to ensure resilience in future crises by ensuring that these basic factors are in place, ensuring deliberate feminist approaches to building back better. So I'll share a bit of lessons from Hawaii, from the Hawaii Feminist Economic and Recovery Plan for COVID-19, and I'll also share a bit of the approaches that Canada followed, as well as the lessons learned from the African Feminist Post-COVID Economy Recovery Plan. I'll probably focus on this. So localized food supply chains should be bolstered with monetary and resources support going directly to support smallholder farmers across Africa, the guardians of biodiversity, indigenous seeds and land. This time is well overdue for policies that recognize the centrality of care work for health systems and the economy, meaning governments must roll out various support measures for a resilient care sector that does not rely on the exploitation of women in the home and in the workplace. It is also necessary to consider responses that do not just seek to address direct impacts of COVID-19, but also build the broader strength of health and social protection systems holistically, horizontally, acknowledging that this is fundamentally political and about designing and sustaining systems for the well-being of the majority. The lessons from the Hawaiian Feminist Economy Recovery Plan include women in all levels of consultation, decision-making, and communication outreach, intersectional approaches as highlighted, collect, analyze, and publish disaggregated data, gender, race, ethnicity, age, zip code, and social data on cases and on COVID-19 cases and the economic impact of COVID. Support women's economic independence, the redistribution of redistribution, I'm tongue-tied, of unpaid care work and the circular economy, ensuring jobs, programs for women, and public provision for childcare and programs such as paid family leave that support more equitable distribution of childcare and recognized paid work. So the Canadian perspective was also very interesting. I'll now maybe go to a number of recommendations that I've highlighted. I'll mention 3 or 4 of those. The importance of promoting women's meaningful participation and leadership and gender balanced teams in all institutions and organizations, working in close cooperation with local administrations and authorities, extend information protection materials, funding, and additional capacity to ensure full participation and leadership of women in remote areas and in communities that are undeserved and where women are currently underrepresented in decision-making processes. Consult representatives from national gender machineries, community-based organizations, civil society representatives or organizations, as well as planning and decision-making to help guarantee gender perspectives. I will end my presentation here. Thank you very much for listening, and I'm available if you have any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Nono Dihemo, Senior Gender Advisor at the United Nations Assistance Mission for Afghanistan, for giving us insight into the work you do in the policy space to encourage gender equality, also speaking about the importance of serving women where they need in Afghanistan. And when we go further out of that country, reminding us of the impact of COVID-19 on women in particular, and the importance of having women having a seat at the table and being decision makers in the recovery from COVID-19 and beyond. I'd now like to call to the virtual stage Ms. Hoden Musa Ahmed. She's a research officer and BintiAfrika co-founder, as well as the Horn editor. All right, these are sometimes the joys of live streaming and live events. We do not seem to have Ms. Hoden Musa Ahmed here with us today, so I'm going to ask to go to our next speaker, who's Ms. Victoria Rowan. She's a Media Strengthening Project Officer and BintiAfrika co-founder, as well as Eastern and Central African editor. Ms. Rowan, it's over to you.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator, Honorable Deputy Speaker, and also all panelists and everybody that has tuned in. Thank you very much for tuning in and all protocols observed. So my presentation today, okay, my name is Victoria Rowan, is already introduced, and I am the BAC East and Central Africa editor. My presentation today will go straight forward to asking where are the youth when it comes to socio-economic development. So would you please go to the next slide? Thank you. Thank you. So as we first heard from our Deputy Minister, at first she was giving an example of a girl wishing to become a pilot sometimes. Now, I also, when I was preparing this presentation, I also posed the question to you audiences. Can you imagine a world where a girl can have a chance to create a future for her choosing? So now let's say, for an example, she wants to be a pilot. Is that fair? I think it's fair, and it's very fair to the world and to everybody, regardless of the gender, age, and all those things. So people do have aspirations. So it's good for them to be having that. And so how does this happen? Where youth, when we want to talk about all these socio-economic developments. Now, we'll go to the next slide, please. Thank you. Yes, so we could think of different ways on how to empower girls, young girls, these are the youth girls, and in order to assist them in having different aspirations. Now, let's say we have I've given an example of a youth program that is for boosting economic development for the youth, of which is here in Tanzania, UNFPA does the Moto Girls. It's a club where girls are given scholarships and they are taken to school, whereby once somebody is already taken to school, now this brings a different perspective there, whereby she or he will decide whether to do anything. You know, education is power. So my next slide will be going to talk about how education can empower this type of youth. So now this program gives a number of youth opportunities for them to get different types of loans so that they can boost up their type of entrepreneurship or business in general. So now let's look, when we talk about youth, now let's think of projects that will enable to boost them in different ways so that they can also get to where we all want to be. As in, like, when we talk of women empowerment, let's not forget about these women youth who are also coming up to, they also one day want to become whoever that they aspire to be. Yeah, please take me to the next slide. Thank you. So as I was speaking in the previous slide, that education programs will assist girls get the type of future that they want to be in. So now let's, when we think of them, giving them different opportunities, programs that will take them to school, regardless of their age, because regardless of their age or their situations. Like here in Tanzania, there was a time where pregnant girls will not go back to school. So, but afterwards, it was seen that it's not fair for them because women or young girls also have future after giving birth. So this is a good implementation that we have different programs that will help them get to where they want to be in development terms, especially in the socio-economic, of which is the platforms and context that we are talking about today. So let's all encourage girls to go to school and also encourage parents to take girls to school, and also encourage different funders or programs to develop programs that will enable to allow girls that are in different environments, especially the hard environments, so that they can go to school also, so that they can get empowered in different ways. Would you go to the next slide, please? Thank you. Thank you. So as once you already educate somebody, and let's now talk about goals, they get to be having self-empowered. They become very self-empowered, and whereby is in legal protection, they'll know how to protect themselves, knowing the laws. And if they want to engage in these socio-economic developments, they'll get to know the laws so that they can path in through different ways is recommended by the government that they are in. Healthcare, you see, sometimes young girls do not know how to take care of themselves health-wise. This is the sexual health. It's good for them to get to know their health so that they can know how to plan for their children or their lives in general. Yeah. So also access to training, job skills. This will also allow women, these young ladies, to make their lives different from where they are, especially in terms of these communities that do demonize young girls, of which I know a majority of Africans do that. So with this, this will empower these young girls to get to the best place that they want to be, themselves. I took to there are various quotations from our leaders, but I took one from Julius Nyerere, who said, "You cannot develop people, you must allow people to develop themselves." So we cannot push girls, but we should let them do it on their own. And also, I have another quote from Kofi Annan of any society that does not succeed in tapping into the energy and creativity of its youth will be left behind. So we see the importance of education and letting people empower themselves, and also including this youth, because they're the future leaders. Nowadays we say it's not the future, it's now. So these youth are the ones that are making it happen to the world. So with this, please go to the next slide. Thank you. Yes, with Binti, we believe that stories do aspire change. So with various stories that we give at the Binti website and the newsletter, so this do allow people to see, read stories, also have the power to create more stories so that we can bring change to the youth, and youth, especially the youth girls who have no or limited access to socio-economic change. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Victoria Rowan, for highlighting the importance of youth and reiterating what a lot of our other panelists have been saying, the importance of empowering the girl child if we're going to get to a society that has gender equality. We've heard such powerful remarks from our panelists today and the many urgent issues facing women on the continent. It's at this point that I'd like to ask the ladies, gentlemen, and gender non-conforming people watching online to send us questions. If you've got a specific person that you'd also like the question to be answered by, please let us know in the comments. There are a few, so I'm going to start from the one with Namala Moodley. What is being done to create equal opportunities? They're also saying we cannot work in isolation and create the much needed changes in society, specifically career choices and workplace equality and equity. So that question from Namala Moodley, anybody on the panel can take it. If you can just raise your hands, or you can begin speaking what is being done to create equal opportunities. I'm just double checking that our panelists are online and can hear some of the questions that are coming in. And I'd like to ask perhaps the Deputy Minister, if you're still online, I think from a government point of view as well.
Yes, I'm online.
about this. What is being done to create equal opportunities? That question from Namala Moodley.
Yes, no, thank you. I was trying to answer. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Can you
go
hear
ahead,
me?
Deputy Minister.
Yes, thank
Yes,
you.
we can.
Look, from onset, before even the democratic dispensation, there has been movements which have advocated for. In 1994 and in 1996, when the Constitution was formed and the Bill of Rights, the prescripts in themselves then ensured that, one, we start to look at women in society as equals. There are various legislations which are in place. Some we continue to review to ensure that women are given the equal opportunities, but women are also treated equally. For example, ones which can come to mind with regard to yourself is that when it comes to economic opportunities, the government of the day, which is a product of democracy chosen by the people, but for the people, has ensured, one, that when you be put in your BE scoring, you also prioritize to ensure that women receive that significant share of recognition. You also talk about your 50-50 gender parity, which becomes important. We've also placed quotas into ensuring that even in government, in senior management, as much as, for example, you will consciously say people living with disability, you must have a 2% allocation for them. You also ensure that you remind employers to ensure that in these work streams, in this workplace, you have got women in senior management. And other legislations which are passed by Parliament. What becomes important, just to venture further, what becomes an issue is that what is it that government is doing with civil society and other sectors to ensure that legislations which are passed become a reality to women in rural areas? And therefore, for example, platforms like this give us an opportunity, one, to interact with women who are working with other women on a daily basis, but also to ensure that we empower civil society and NGOs to also continue to streamline. So in relation to economic opportunities, there is that consciousness and legislation that propels us to ensure that we give women that 50% allocation and prioritizing to ensure that women are placed and taken into serious consideration. Of course, a lot still needs to be done, and I think that is why there is this question to ask: what is it that we are doing? There's a lot that is being done, but there is a gap which we need to fill in ensuring to rural women. If you check, for example, with the Department of, which is led by Minister Lamola, in relation to your gender-based violence issues, because also you'd remember that when women are violated, it affects the whole value chain of empowering women. In relation to sexual offences bill, which then prioritizes women, protects them from reporting, and so forth and so forth. And those bill in this sixth administration is from 2019 until 2024. There's been some form of strengthening those bills to ensure that they also protect women, they empower them to be able to come out and speak, and also put the perpetrators where they belong, so that they can be held accountable in relation to accounting. So those bills have been strengthened to ensure that women are protected, but most importantly is the social dialogues to ensure that we go to rural women and remind them and alert them of their rights and what needs to be done to protect them. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for that response, Deputy Minister. Remember, we are taking questions for the next 6 minutes or so on the webinar. This is a question, I'm going to not name the person as they've sent the question privately, but they're asking, how can you empower a woman like me who has been to prison? Now I am dependent financially on my brothers who can at times be abusive. I do have skills and apply for jobs, but I'm always rejected after my criminal record is found. The fact of the matter is that to start a business, you need some sort of funding. Let me tell you, there are a lot of women in my position, and it's humiliating. That's a question coming from a viewer. Deputy Minister, you can answer that, but our other panelists as well, if you can speak to women who may have questions about how to start over from a very challenging situation like having been in prison.
I would like to speak first. First of all,
Please go ahead.
To concur what Madam Deputy Minister spoke, and but adding the fact that as much as governments or policies are put in place, I've been privileged to work both in civil society and in international organizations and national organizations. It is women themselves that we need to get the message to women so that they're empowered. And when quotas are put, even though, as long as there are men that are also there who are putting the quotas, the action speaks more. They can speak, but what about the push? So may I talk about there needing to be more push of bringing women voices and bringing the agenda of women and using these civil societies to amplify that messaging. Now coming to this lady who's coming from challenging circumstances. First of all, let me applaud her for wanting to move on, because that itself takes courage. And that itself is something one can sort of, as a role model, look at her, that she wants to move forward. I know, for example, in Tanzania, there would be organizations that one could go to, civil society organizations working for women, that would help her move forward, because then they will also become her voice or her place. So maybe she could look for that through those organizations and maybe the social services. But I'm glad that we have a deputy minister here who can also input, because women who have gone through challenges need to be, need to be empowered to move forward, but need to be encouraged and can be used as role models. So my take is, let her move to civil society organizations that are out there, and from there see how they can move forward. And if she's South African, well, we have the deputy minister here who has already had her voice. Over to you. Thank you.
Deputy Minister, if I can please ask our panelists to switch on the cameras when they're answering questions so we can see your faces just before we wrap up. Deputy Minister, I don't know if you'd like to also respond to that question that came in from someone who's watching the webinar saying she's been in prison, she wants to know how to be empowered because doors get closed because of a criminal record.
Yeah, let's do the camera. Okay, right. Look, no. I'm actually a little bit touched. I want to applaud her for the courage. And one thing that I want to remind her is that if she's being abused by a relative or whoever, she is not a lesser citizen in the country. She needs to stand up and go and report it because she's being violated, and that is wrong. Taking a leave, I want to answer, but I would like to talk to her of her. But of course, maybe for the other women who have not spoken, who are saying, we once committed crimes, we went to prison, we've paid our dues, we want to be integrated into society. That one, civil society can be able to assist. But also what we want to encourage them is that let them open NPOs and also give back to society to be able to assist other women. There is a lot of venturing that they can be able to do. Of course, there are other institutions by law which maybe might look away and say, we cannot trust you with particular resources because of what you have done. But there is a whole lot more that they can also start, which can also in turn be able to empower them to be able to live better by also wanting to start movements which are meant to also carry women like herself. And from then she can be able to find funding and be able to run these NGOs, these processes. And in that process of running them, she can also be able to also get some form of livelihood and sustainability. She should surely not necessarily give up. I think what she needs to be assisted with, one, is to tangibly identify what is it that she's more interested in. Two, that's one. But two, how would you then, from a personal level, be able to channel it to say this, for example, this is what they are dealing with, they can be able to assist you. I'm sure she can be allowed to open some form of an NPO and then be able to work. At least she's not hiding her past and she has paid for her dues. That would be an answer to the broader public, but it would be nice also to just say, can't we meet her and be able to channel her in the right direction and be able to assist her? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Minister. I'm aware that we are also running slightly behind schedule, so I'd like to take as many questions as possible before we wrap up. If I can ask going forward, all our panelists to answer as briefly as possible without taking away from the substance. We've got a question/comment from Henny B, who runs a construction company. He says, we need to propose a tool to empower women. We're all aware of the disparity, but no feasible solution is proposed or implemented. Then he goes on to say, we see the lack of housing as the product that would encourage the participation of women, to empower women-led community cooperatives to lead mass housing programs and food productions in order to uplift themselves. So that's a question/comment. I'm going to ask another question and then I'll hand it over to the floor. Question from Nandisa Ngubelanga, who says, do you think the lack of empowerment is an equality or equity issue? I'm not sure who'd like to take that. If you can just start speaking and we can move forward with that.
Inequality versus what? Please remind me. I didn't capture it. Not that I want. Inequality and?
Do you think the lack of empowerment is an equality or an equity issue? That's from Nandisa Ngubelanga. All right, I'm just checking if there's anyone for that question before we move on. All right, in the interest of time, if no one's going to answer that, I'm going to take another question from Maliha Nuri, who says, who we all as a united women can support all the girls around the globe to get their basic rights for education. If there's anyone who'd like to answer that question.
Yeah, no. You're saying who in all?
Can support all the girls around the globe to get their basic rights for education. That's a question from Maliha Nuri.
Okay.
Maybe
I hope I'm capturing the question correctly. I also want to.
Perhaps, Nono, you can answer that question, as I can see you online and ready to speak there.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Thank you, Maliha Nuri, for the question. And I think the challenge, Maliha is from Afghanistan. The challenge in Afghanistan is that girls are not allowed to go to school beyond 6th grade. So UNICEF is rolling out programs to support some of the girls to be taught privately. So this is what UNICEF is currently doing, and we are also looking into this at the Kabul level to support some of the women who are now teaching girls privately because they cannot go to school. So what is needed is a lot of funding for this, and a lot of economic empowerment strategies that can also support women who can basically do vocational training because they are not allowed to go to school. So these are some of the programs that UNICEF and UNESCO are looking at in Afghanistan. And I guess maybe the Deputy Minister would perhaps say something in terms of the South African context. Thank you.
No, thank you. Look, our approach as government is that to build better communities and a better society, You need everybody to partake. That's why from time to time you'll hear us talking about a social compact, and that to be able to get this girl child to be knowledgeable, to know her rights and to stand up for herself. The most important thing is that all sectors of society needs to embrace her. And that is why government has got a conscious decision that in all sectors we must assist. If it's NPOs which are meant to empower your girl child, you must empower them so that they can be able to do the work. If it's private entities and so on which are meant to do the same work, let them empower them, because to empower and produce this girl child who is knowledgeable, who can face the world, you need all sectors, media, the media platform space and everybody else to be able to play a role. So in our context, we look at it beyond legislation. Every sector, government must create that conducive environment to ensure that those who want to participate with government in producing this ideal girl child, they are given the space to ensure that they do it, and we do it successfully. Thank you.
All right. Before we wrap up, I'd just like to find out if any of our panelists from across the virtual stage would like to respond to any of the questions before I hand over to GCIS.
You know, you asking about inequality and quality. Please repeat that. I think there was one where I said, I'm not hearing what you're saying, and I think we need to address it. I don't know if you remember it.
It's from a person called Nandisa Ngubelanga, and she was asking, do you think the lack of empowerment is an equality or an equity issue? She also asked a little bit earlier on how these things are going to be implemented practically, how these plans of reaching equality for women are going to be implemented practically.
All right. Look, these two, they are intertwined. I don't want to say they are morphometrics, because in their own way they have got their own definition. But me and you will agree that when you want to empower women, for example, you want to build an equal society where there is no inequality. But at the same time, the issue of empowering women is to ensure that we live on an equal standard. So the two, they intertwine with each other, because we want to empower you because we want a society which is equal. But in the very same state of wanting to address that society that is equal, you also want to ensure that everybody feels that they are part of the continent. So addressing both, when you address the issue of women in all aspects of society, you are responding to the two, and one cannot go above the other. They coexist in that way. Thank you.
All right. Just checking if our panelists from Tanzania would like to have any final thoughts, any of those questions that have been posed before I hand over to GCIS.
Yes, I would. Thank you. Yes, I would. Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. I think I would not allow you to wind up without first saying thank you to all the panelists, including you, for very good moderation, and Madam Deputy, my co-founders in back. But most of all, I would like to talk a bit about equity and equality. I must say that it has always confused me a bit, or I remember also going to a fellow woman who is very good on these issues and asking her, what do women want? Is it equity or equality? She said the same thing as Madam Thembi. Both of them, they work together to get us where we want to be. So they should not be used. We are saying equity, we are saying equality. Both of them together, combined, will push us towards the Africa we want, to the Tanzania we want, South Africa we want, to where women want. Thank you. And thank you very much, before you wind up, for setting this up, for allowing us to participate. And it is something that needs to be applauded, and we hope it will be held every year. Thank you very much. Over to you.
Thank you very much. I'd now like to hand over to Ms. Pumla Williams. She's the Director General of the GCIS and serves as spokesperson of Cabinet and Government. Ms. Williams' 17 years of work experience in both provincial and national government has provided her with extensive experience in governance issues in the public service. Ms. Williams, it's over to you.
Thank you very much, Program Director. And good morning to the panelists, and good morning also to the DM who made it possible that she join us in her busy schedule. Allow me to also start by thanking the Mail and Guardian for having partnered with us when we reached out to what Valerie was saying, that media is a very important aspect of what is it that we seek to do in terms of empowering women. Today we have heard various speakers from various angles from the panelists. But what has come out very clearly in this discussion today is that the empowerment of women in Africa can no longer be viewed as an optional irritation in governments and across the board. It must be taken seriously if we are serious about the prosperity of the continent. And that is why, Program Director, I really love what BintiAfrika is doing in terms of empowering the girl child. Because if we don't make sure that our girl child does get education, the chances of that girl child in being part of building the Africa we want become even more slimmer. And the chances of that girl child to be empowered enough to navigate her space in a relationship become a bit smaller. We have heard today the speakers telling us about our collective voices and our collective power and influence. Program Director, our collective voices can only be effective if we are loud enough and we are vocal and we are deliberate in what is it that we seek to do in our institution, in our churches, in our houses, in every settings where it matters. Media will always be part of that expressing the voice of women. It is the media that will help us in making sure that when they write stories, they write through the lens of a gender-responsive platform. We know that there are women in boardrooms which we celebrate, and coincidentally, as I was reading up, I see that the African continent seems to be better globally in terms of the number of women who are in boardrooms. But what we should be saying with those women in boardrooms, let them also be deliberate in making sure that the gender of that boardroom is responsive to the empowerment of women. We have heard today that the struggles of women have built in within us some element of resilience. Program Director, the resilience is grounded on us wanting to be recognized as equal citizens of these countries and of the continent. It is built on our resolve from our mothers, from our great-grandmothers, that forward ever and backward never is going to be our motto. Because I think we want, as we celebrate in South Africa the Women's Month, we want to say that we are where we are. Because I think women, even the history of the continent, tells us that women continues to kick the door, because they did refuse to be second-class citizens in their own spaces. So I think we celebrate as women in South Africa, but we also celebrate with the continent. And that is why we are happy that BintiAfrika continues to partner with us Last year, I'm reminded that they also partnered with us in this engagement, because what we are also hearing today is that the challenges that are facing women in South Africa are the challenges that are facing the continent. And there is no reason why we should also not collectively, as the continent, as women, deal with the challenges of health, the challenges of education, the challenges that we face as our girl child. And also I want to add, even our boy child, because if we are to win the right of women to be recognized in our countries, it is also to do our bit in harnessing that boy child to understand where human beings fit in their adulthood as they grow up. Because I think part of the biggest challenge is that we tend to create a very strange boy child, to a point that when she becomes an adult, she doesn't even understand why she has to coexist with another gender species within that a setting. We want to reflect that as a country, we cannot succeed if we do not work very hard in the empowerment of women. During the month of August, South Africa also celebrates the Women of the Yesteryear, but we also use the time to reflect whether are we making progress. The DM was reflecting on some of the progress that we have made in terms of our laws, but we are also the first ones to say that we are far from achieving what we want. Yes, there's quite small pockets of the empowerment of women. I think I was reading up the programs that are run by the National Empowerment Fund, the programs of the Department of Trade and Innovation, the programs that are run on the youth empowerment. But I think we want more of those, because if we are to begin to equalize the empowerment of women in our country, we need more of those interventions. We know that the government of the day has also put in place that 40% of its procurement should go to women. But I want to call on the government departments to also take that whole decision, because that decision will always remain on paper if it doesn't get actualized. That 40% of a procurement budget of each department, it has to be seen to be going towards empowering of women. And once we begin to do that, and ideally, it should be 50-50. But yes, we have to start somewhere. We appreciate that the government has said 40% of our procurement should go towards women-owned businesses. That should be done. And I think we should be held accountable. Departments should be held accountable. The day we have our parliamentary structures to begin to challenge departments when they come in account on their annual reports, they should be posed that question to say, how much of this billion rand of your budget has gone towards the empowerment of women? And it's at that point where we can begin to say we are making progress. And we also say that it's okay to empower young girls into the work settings, but if we are not going to provide that kind of support for those young girls that come into work settings, we are equally not contributing as senior women. We are also reflecting on the issue of the challenges that we still face. We are the first ones to say gender-based violence in our country continues to be a challenge, and it continues to be a challenge even in the continent. And we have to use whatever platform we have to call it out, to make sure that we don't report the issues of gender-based violence only when it is Women's Month. Uncomfortable as they are, let us talk about them. Let those stories be an irritation, so that we begin to internalize the seriousness of how these issues affect the development of a country. Because I want to go to that extent to say, for as long as women feel unsafe in our country and in our continent, we can never speak about equality and non-sexist society that we are all striving for. So we have to make sure when it is this AUKUS month and 365 days in a year, we have to make sure that we call it out. And I did appreciate the presentation that was made on Afghanistan by Nono, I think. You know, what is so evident, and we are learning from these dialogues, is that for as long as we are not going to have a gender responsive in a crisis setting, she is absolutely correct that the COVID, as it ravaged in South Africa, women were hardest hit. Recently, we are coming out from the floods that have affected the KZN. If you look into all our stories, the majority of people who have been affected are women and children. And our responsive interventions have got to make sure, we have to make sure that they are gender responsive. So, Chairperson, as my closing remarks, I do want to say that the dialogue today has hopefully made all the viewers who logged in benefit, but I think we want to say, let this not be the last conversation. I know we have partnered before with BintiAfrika, but we want to continue to continue the conversation on the gender-based violence and also on the empowerment of women, because the empowerment of women will begin to take us closer. Lastly, let me thank also our team in GCIS that have really worked hard to make sure that this webinar does take place. So I'd like to thank Meme, I would like to thank Ayanda and Paul, who have made it possible. And once again, thank you very much, Mail and Guardian. And thank you to the program director who really steered the ship so well. And thank you very much.
Thanks to everybody who is here. We're going to just show you a short video before we leave. And thank you to everyone who's participated in this discussion.
10 reasons why you should invest in South Africa. Number 1, hot emerging market. Number 2, the number 1 diversified economy in Africa. Number 3, the largest presence of multinationals on the African continent. Number 4, progressive constitution and independent judiciary. Number 5, favorable market access to global markets. Number 6, abundant natural resources. Number 7, advanced financial services and banking sector. Number 8, world-class infrastructure and logistics. Number 9, young, trainable labor force. And number 10, excellent quality of life.
Plato said, "Who will guard the guardians? Who are our guardians? Do they care about us? Are they accountable for their actions, or are they above the law? Who elects these guardians? Us? Them? Someone else? And if they guard us, who will guard them? Who will guard the guardians?" The Mail and Guardian, if you really want to